So hi everyone, we're just going to wait a minute or so we can have a few more people come into the room that have said that they'd like to join. Nonetheless, thank you for everyone who's already joined, and thank you for all the speakers who are up here with us tonight to tackle one of the most asked questions, I think, in the Armenians Club, and who better to have speak about them than these amazing group of people who tackle it every day. I think just so we get the topic going, and before I ask the question of how the idea of having all of you come together and host this kind of room, I'd like to begin by having you introduce yourselves one by one, starting from Lara in the natural order: Blue, Sevan, David, Tanya, Vartan. So Lara, can you please introduce you?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I don't know what time it is for you, but it's evening. I'm in Yerevan. I moved to Armenia from Canada, Toronto, Canada, about 17 years ago. I currently work, for the past 12 years, I've been currently working for Viva MTS as the head of HR. So I'm looking forward to this discussion and to meeting all these people.
Perfect. Thank you, Lara. Blue, could you kindly introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Blue Kalamian. I'm a filmmaker, mostly working on documentaries these days. I am part of the Birthright Armenia or Depi Hike program. Currently, I've been here for 2 months, and I've been working on various film projects, both with Birthright and outside of Birthright.
So nice to have an actual volunteer up with us. Thank you, Blue, for that. Sevan, could you please introduce yourself?
Good morning, good evening, everyone. Sevan Kabakian here. I work with the Debi Hike program, Birthright Armenia. We moved to Armenia 15 years ago, and I look forward to this engaging participation on Clubhouse.
Thank you, Sevan. Really happy to have you here, and Birthright is doing so much for the nation. David, please introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, I'm David. I'm the only local among today's speakers. I'm from Yerevan, and I'm the communications manager at COAF. Those who don't know COAF, that's an organization, nonprofit organization, Children of Armenia Fund, working for 17 years day in, day out to advance rural communities of Armenia. Thank you.
That's a great initiative, COAF. One of my, I've been seeing COAF for the past God knows how long, and I love everything they're doing. Tanya, could you please introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone, or good day, depending on where you are. I'm currently in Yerevan with almost all the other speakers. I was born and raised in Canada, spent a few years in Washington, D.C., and then we moved to Armenia 11 years ago. And now I'm with Armenian Volunteer Corps, and hoping to engage a lot of you and inspire a lot of you to become more engaged with Armenia.
That was beautifully said and empowering. Thank you, Tanya. Vartan.
Good evening to everyone. I'm Vartan. I was born in Armenia, spent most of my life in Moscow, moved back for the second time in 2010. So it's a little bit more than 11 years that I live in Armenia with my family. Worked in Armenia as a deputy minister of Diaspora, and then in 2012 we've established Repat Armenia Foundation, which is developed specifically to help repatriates, people who would like to move to Armenia to live for long. So I'm also looking forward to meet with different people and to be helpful, to provide useful tips, information. And I would also like to mention that this is the first discussion, but we are planning together with Birthright Armenia, AVC, and all other like-minded organizations, we are planning to organize a series of regular discussions with diaspora Armenians. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Vartan, and thank you for establishing that foundation. And as you can see, a great bunch of people up here with me today to speak about one of the most asked questions, as I said prior, working in Armenia for non-locals. What are the challenges? So before we dive into everyone's experience with that same topic, I want to ask, how did you guys come together and decide to host this? Because I feel like it's a gathering of giants in the room, and a really, really popular question that's being asked. So how did it come about? As I recall, Sevan, David, Tanya, it was your approach. Could you tell us more about that?
That was Vartan's, Tanya's, and Sevan's initiative, I guess.
Sorry, yeah, Vartan, my bad.
Okay, let me start, and I'm sure that Sevan and Tanya will join me. So I think I will start with the fact that in general, I think what has happened in 2020 in Armenia is a huge challenge that the entire nation is now facing with, both in Armenia and the diaspora. And what we see, all of us, like organizations, different organizations, networks, and people are doing a lot of good work here in Armenia, is that the catastrophe of 2020 actually brought the nation to the following condition: that a part of Armenians, they would like to step back from being Armenian or from being connected with Armenia, also associated with Armenia. A certain part of Armenians in the diaspora is now taking a pause to understand what's going on. But also there's a pretty big number of people that are applying to us and are looking desperately for different types of engagement with Armenia. And not necessarily physical move to the country, but they're looking for the right initiatives in different sectors to be involved. So they understand that the result of 2020 is their personal defeat as well, and they would like to change that situation. So from our point of view, when we talked with Sevan and Tanya, we understood that there is a very big lack of information about real programs and opportunities for engagement. And actually, the culture of engagement is not also developed so much in the diaspora. So one of the purposes of today's conversation, and which we will have other topics as well during the next weeks, is to provide you with those useful tips, to connect you with the right organizations, to be able to answer on a wide variety of questions which you might have related to your engagement with the country. So today, the topic would be mostly about working in Armenia for non-locals, but we will try to target and touch different aspects of your potential engagement with Armenia, including repatriation. Let me stop here.
Wonderful. Brought smiles to my face. Sevan, Tanya, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, thank you, Garo. I think a few weeks ago when the three of us got together, we were driven by the high importance, I would say the urgency of getting the word out in as many platforms, in as many ways, to as many people as possible, our Armenian compatriots around the world, to look at their participation in Armenia, with Armenia, for Armenia, on a different level than they probably have in the past years and decades. So we wanted to engage directly with our friends all around the world, and to put at ease a lot of concerns that people might have about, is now the right time to engage in Armenia? Is now safe to engage in Armenia? So this is way beyond challenges of the local, working in the local economy or the local workplace. It's a lot of people were thinking, is there a challenge of just being physically in Armenia? Is that a safety? And instead of people moving away and becoming more hesitant and conservative in their relationship with Armenia, we wanted to have these type of conversations to reverse that trend, if that existed. Fortunately, with Birthright Armenia, we've seen through our application and participation numbers this year that we have fully recovered from the COVID year last year. And there's a lot of young energy that is eager to jump in with real engagement and practical work in Armenia. So that's hopefully our goal that we want to accomplish, all of us together, including our audience.
That's very well said. I think I also realized that urgency that was created post-war with people wanting to volunteer. So I think Birthright is giving such a great platform for those youngsters, fresh graduates to come and fulfill that need they have, that national need. So thank you for offering that. And Tanya, would you like to add anything to that?
I do. I want to add that it's not just young people who want to come and volunteer and become engaged and do something, be helpful. It's people of all ages, actually. And AVC is here to help people of all ages. Retirees, a lot of retirees who travel to Armenia every year regularly to spend summers here, or they travel here maybe with their grandchildren to spend their holidays here, and they want to become engaged, to do something, to be useful, to use their skills. AVC will help them do just that and more.
And for the people like myself who would ask, what does AVC stand for? It would be Armenian Volunteer Corps, for those who don't already know. And I would have,
Yeah, thank you, Gato.
and it's my fault for everyone who doesn't have a bio in the room and didn't missed it. I think for the most of you, you have written in your bio who you are besides Tanya. And Tanya, could you just remind us of what you do, what AVC does, so the people in the room would know?
Armenian Volunteer Corps is actually Birthright Armenia's sister organization, and we're a complementary organization. We're two complementary organizations. So basically, anyone who is too old to join Birthright Armenia and is jealous of all these young people having these great experiences can join Armenian Volunteer Corps instead, and we'll help you have just as amazing an experience.
Preferably Parinachant, not the bad kind.
Ayo
Jealous.
Parinachant.
Sounds good. So that the round of introductions have been done. The question of the day is, what are the challenges for non-locals? And I think for the most of you, besides David, who's a local, can answer this question. And do we want to go around the room and if you could give us an idea of how it was like to be back in Heidelberg, to be in Heidelberg actually, whether it was the first time or to be back there for long term, how that experience was. And Lara, the mic goes to you because you're first next to me.
Oh no, I have to refresh so that I can go to the end next time. Okay, so by process of elimination, I guess. My experience moving to Armenia from Toronto 17 years ago was very different times at that time. I mean, we're talking 2004, and the times today are very different. I think the market, the challenges of the market then were not the same. Obviously, we didn't have startups. IT market had not completely, exploded like it has in the past 7-8 years. My problem was mostly adjusting to the culture, which was a much more Russian speaking market in terms of employment. It's not the same as much now, obviously, but Russian. I mean, I had no Russian, and my Armenian was Western Armenian, right? Not Eastern Armenian. So I had a double whammy in terms of a physical challenge or a language challenge. Trying to adjust. Plus, I was a woman, so, and I know I'm not going to try to make this a feministic talk, but the point was it was very challenging to be a woman leader or a manager at that time, more so than it is today. Not that I'm not denying that there are everything's hunky dory still today, but that was a big problem for me. So I had all these very big ball challenges to try to accomplish and to and I in the diaspora community wasn't as large as it is now, so I didn't have many people to go to try to understand how to address and overcome these challenges. So I think now, if we're going to say what the challenges are now, it's mostly technical, not as much in terms of, okay, I'm Lebanese Armenian, or I'm from Arizona, or I'm from the suburb of Paris in Issy-les-Moulineaux. The challenges are not that big. I mean, it is globalized, but the problem now that I see, especially with applicants coming in, is that they're not really trying to meet the needs of the market. So if they know that there's a big lack of, let's say, QA engineers or C# or data analysts or big data, these are the areas that are starting to boom. Whereas topics like HR or finance, it's saturated. You have a lot of people that have the capacity in Armenia that will apply, so they're going to be competing with the non-local person as well. And the advantage for the local person will be that they do have the Russian and they do have the Armenian language skills that will compete. So I'm going to give room for other people to speak, but I'll be more than happy to give more specific examples when the time comes, but just an overall idea of what the challenges are based on my personal experience right now as an HR manager, what I see. But I don't want people to think that, okay, if I'm a non-local, then my application will not be looked at because I'm not a local. That's not true. Not the case for all companies, obviously. I can't speak for all, but definitely in many cases they don't look at age, or they won't look at, let's say, citizenship for that particular matter. But we'll talk more about that later.
Lara, you
Thanks.
undersold yourself so well. It was humbling how you didn't want to go first, but you killed it, basically. And I love that introduction.
Do I get brownie points?
You get 2 brownie points.
Okay.
So, Blue, topping that off, please, what are the challenges you're going through currently? Because you're volunteering with Birthright as we speak.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because this is actually my second time in Hayastan, my first being in November of 2020. And that time I was working as well, although I didn't have the luxury of Birthright telling me what to expect before I was kind of thrown into the world of trying to do filmmaking. And to be completely honest, my Armenian is not as good as I would like it to be, but it's definitely a lot better now than it was when I first came. So the first thing I want to note on, which I know is a challenge for many diasporans, is language. And even if you know Western, you might find it difficult to transition into Eastern. Something that I think it was the initial thing that really discouraged me, because it was very difficult to get around that barrier in the workplace. But I quickly learned that knowing a little can go a long way. And you'll find that even my friends who have always spoken Armenian, whether Western or Eastern, whichever dialect, once they're thrown into a professional industry, they realize that their vocabulary never breached that industry. Whether it's like for me, for filmmaking, I've already learned so many new terms I had never heard before because I had never been around filmmakers. I have many friends in the medical field who have said the same thing, even friends who have talked about how they can't even follow politics in Armenian because their vocabulary never reached that point. That being said, I think that communication is really important in any workplace. So it can be a little difficult to communicate problems you might have efficiently or whatever. But I've been lucky enough that I have either enough Armenian to make up for that, or the people I work with know enough English to, for us to be able to properly communicate. As Lada stated, there are, of course, cultural differences. I'm sure it was a lot different in 2004. I would have no idea. But now there still are very many cultural differences from what I would say the quote-unquote Western cultures are like. One key thing, which I know is like a stereotype, but us Birthright volunteers joke about because it is very true sometimes, is the late start hours. If they tell you work starts at 10, it may very well be that work starts at 10:30 or 11 or whenever the person who has the office keys shows up. And it's one of those things where you just kind of get used to it. Like, I think we've all adapted pretty quickly. There are a few challenges as to like how the workday hours are structured. When is the most productive time to be working. You might have one workflow and your job site has another workflow, and you guys are both trying to like adapt with each other. I've run into some hiccups with that, but like I said, everything can be solved with a little bit of communication. I think that was like something that, for me personally, it took me about a month to get into the groove of like how I was working for a film production company in Yerevan for the past 2 months, and it took me about a month to get like the flow that everybody else was at. And I think that once I started to communicate what I needed as um, as part of certain projects that they wanted me on, it started to become a lot easier for us to work together and understand what we needed. You can't fix every problem, but I think that there's a lot to be said for the way people are able to adapt now. Granted, I work with a lot of young people, it being film and film being very much, I think it's in like a new, it's almost in like a new era in Armenia. There's like a new wave of filmmakers. All these people I work with are exceptionally young, making amazing work. So that might, have a little bit of an effect on it. But yeah, that's been my experience so far.
Can I just say that don't cut yourself short? I think all of you are young and you're doing much more than any of my generation can do. So, Blue, also, you don't look that old, or you're aging like fine wine, I can say. But thank you for that introduction, and thank you for volunteering with Birthright and the man behind Birthright as we speak, Sevan. What were your challenges as a non-local?
Wow, that was a huge title, the man behind Birthright. I don't qualify for that title. We have a staff of 12 people. Everyone works very hard, very dedicated, very devoted to the work that we're doing, and I'm part of that engine. Um, well, Garo, I think I'm gonna propose looking at this challenge from a different perspective, and I think it might be also interesting for the audience to have different perspectives when we think about the word challenge. I think the micro challenge is what many people envision to be our topic today. When you come to Armenia, issues with the language or culture, traditions, different way of doing things, and work ethic, and so on. But I think the more relevant challenge to a lot of people listening here is the challenge in people's minds to even attempt to look at Armenia as a place where they would restart a career, start anew, move to, and engage in. And that's basically a personal challenge because there are many risks in people's minds: the financial risk, the downsizing risk, the new country risk, and all these things keep a lot of people away from making an attempt. Because the micro challenges of, okay, someone took that big risk and they came over here, that's those smaller micro challenges get resolved. No one who's come to Armenia has really turned back because of the, I don't know, work ethic or language or other issues like that. So I think the main hurdle is to be able to jump into it. And I think organizations that are here on this call tonight um, provide a platform to make that kind of a move more reasonable and less challenging. We're bridge, we're support systems, AVC, repat, Birthright. We're support systems. We have a lot of experience in creating a smoother transition. And the good things about these organizations is that they allow for people to explore before making life important decisions. Exploring, understanding, coming, checking, volunteering, doing internships or the skill sharing. So I think we can break down this fearsome word called challenge into a very bite-sized you know bite-sized items, and it makes coming to Armenia not one big leap, but a series of extremely small steps, all of them very manageable by everyone in this audience and worldwide. And we propose people to take those smaller steps, explore at a more comfortable level, and sooner or later you've taken 500 small steps, and that equals that one big leap. But it never feels like that. It never feels like a leap because every step was done, with a lot of assurance. So that's the model that we propose for people, and to look at the challenge. The local challenges as almost non-issues, primarily resolving the personal challenges of how do I even make this happen. Thanks, Caro.
Thank you so much. It also reminded me of the Kaizen approach that was developed on how to take small steps consistently, and then you'll see the big change happen. And I love that approach. That's the best way you're supposed to approach life, in my opinion, personal opinion. So, Sevan, thank you so much for that, about tackling those challenges. And David, please,
Yes.
what do you see people going? What kind of challenges do you see people going through? Because you're local.
Yeah, look, actually, I'm local, but I just recall that really, there was a time I also faced some challenges being local in Armenia, and I will now explain how and why. Actually, I started my career, let's say, still studying at university while gaining my master's degree at Yerevan State University. I started from public administration as a civil servant for a little bit less than 2 years. Then I quitted the job, and actually there was a time I also was a volunteer, and I was volunteering back in 2009 in Romania as an EVS volunteer, that's European Voluntary Service, for 6 months. And after coming back to Armenia, though I was a local, of course, but it was hard for me to find a job I want in Armenia, because after public service, then in Romania, working with NGOs, that was completely a different world, a different environment. And I loved it so much that I already in Romania, during the last months, I was in stress thinking that I'm not going to work again in, let's say, traditional Armenian companies with traditional Armenian corporate culture. And I was seeking like a job in a company in Armenia that would have a Western corporate culture. That was a challenge for me, actually. And for 6 months, I was seeking for a job in Armenia once I was back from Romania. And I was lucky enough to get a job. And after that, during my career till now, I actually was lucky enough to work for companies with Western corporate culture. Started from Orange Armenia back in 2010. That was one of the mobile operators. And then also I changed my job working for different companies, and now I work for Club, and I enjoyed really working for companies with quite Western corporate culture. So that there was a time I also faced challenges as a local in Armenia in case of corporate culture struggling. As for non-locals, actually, because I'm local and I was kind of preparing for this talk a little bit, and I was talking to my colleagues at COAF who are non-locals, Diaspora Armenians. Actually, also one of the advantages of working for COAF is that COAF is diverse. Actually, one of our main advantages is diversity, because we have Armenians, and here we have two groups of Armenians, locals and Diaspora Armenians. And among locals we have Armenians from Yerevan and Armenians from regions. This is also completely different world, and much more, everything is much more interesting in this perspective. And also we have non-Armenians in our New York office, Americans. Completely different. Non-Armenians having no Armenian roots. So this diversity is really one of advantages I enjoy, because you really work in a diverse atmosphere. And I was talking to my colleagues who are non-locals, diaspora, asking them what challenge they faced. And as far as I understood from their feedback, actually, I could divide the challenges they faced into two, let's say, conditional groups. First one, let's call related with capacities. And this group of challenges are faced in the first phase when searching for a job in Armenia, you already mentioned all the I guess language barriers stands in the first place here. Most of the diasporan Armenians don't speak Eastern Armenian at all, or speak quite a little, or they think that they speak little Eastern Armenian or understand. But as Blue mentioned, sometimes in different spheres they cannot really understand the language. That's the main challenge. But also another challenge is not knowing actually the job market of Armenia quite well, especially when they are new. Some of them even don't know how to search for a job. I mean, there are certain websites like Career Center or Stuff.am or others, but those who are really new and those who probably haven't any connection with Birthright Armenia or repat, they don't know even where to search for a job. And the second group of the challenges are more connected to local context, Armenian local context, and those challenges are faced in the second phase when they were lucky enough to be hired, and they face these challenges only during working. But I don't know if you want me go in details for this group, or we talk about this later or now, because I have also some. I mean, based on their feedback, I have some challenges. I mean, they mentioned some challenges. I could mention them during working, not for searching for in the phase of searching for a job. But I don't know if you want me to list them now, or maybe we are going to move forward with those later.
We can keep it in a discussion style where we have a few people come up and they can ask a certain question of what those challenges may be, or we can continue on once everyone else, Tanya and Vatan, have done their introduction.
Great.
And this way we can keep the flow going. And thank you, David, for that intro. So, Tanya, could you share some of the challenges you faced?
Sure. Actually, rather than sharing my own personal challenges, maybe I don't recall them.
Because there were none.
I wouldn't say there were none. There are always challenges, but I want to look at the word challenges here and in this context more as opportunities. And I want to continue on what Sevan was saying, which is that Birthright Armenia, Armenian Volunteer Corps, Repat Armenia, and other organizations, we're here to serve as a bridge for a lot of people who are actually thinking of coming to Armenia longer term and hoping to maybe find a job and settle down. And their experiences with Birthright Armenia and AVC actually allow them to view the challenges as opportunities. And a lot of our alumni who have ended up staying in Armenia have found that even if the job that was offered to them perhaps after their volunteering didn't exactly fit their skill set or didn't exactly fit their idea of what their future profession should be, it ended up being one of the best decisions they could have made because it served as an experience for them. It served to get them into the job market. It served as a bridge for them to create a different type of network, a completely professional network, and ultimately, eventually, to find the job of their dreams. And I think Sevan will say the same. We've been doing this for a while, and we found that over the years, and especially in the last 8-10 years, it's becoming progressively easier to find a job in Armenia. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, our alumni had a harder time finding a job here or setting up their own project, maybe starting a small business. Whereas now, more and more are finding the means to do that and becoming successful. So they are challenges, but they're also opportunities.
The one headline was popping into my mind, how moving to Armenia is also a journey of self-discovery, professionally, everything. And I love that approach, actually, to challenges. And I think that also embodies, as to our journey as Armenians, self-discovery, as an Armenian, self-discovery professionally, which all come hand in hand. And I love that. Thank you, Tanya and Vartan. I'm not going to say the word challenges because we had two people attest to it. But what is your point of
Yeah,
view?
let me start with my personal experience. I first moved to Armenia in '98 when I was 23 years old. I spent 2.5 years in Armenia. I had to leave, but kind of it was a very interesting and challenging experience. But I understood that I want to live in Armenia, so I need just to build up my career somewhere else at the moment. So I went back to Moscow for 10 years and then moved more prepared to Armenia in 2010. But again, first of all, people need to be ready for a change, right? Because I'm a real estate developer and banking sector professional. I worked in international organizations, but look, I moved to Armenia. I changed my career. I started working at the Ministry of Diaspora and then established Repat together with another 11 like-minded people. So first of all, you need to be open for the change. That's number one. The second is you need to understand that it might take several stages. So your physical move might take, like, first time you come as a volunteer, right? You experience it, you understand it, then you come with a pilot trip, you meet with different potential employers, or maybe you need to establish something different. I think COVID also created some good opportunities for people who can work remotely. Armenia is definitely one of the best places if you want to live here and work remotely. So, and we really need to expand this kind of a sector because the local market is quite small. So most of the competitive vacancies in Armenia are in the sectors which are connected with the external world. So basically, it's tourism, can be hospitality sector in more general sense, IT sector for sure, and several other sectors which are kind of export oriented. So here are the biggest opportunities for you in terms of salaries, in terms of the working culture, etc., etc. Unfortunately, I must confess that one of the challenges in general in the diaspora is that Armenia in the Sunday schools, Armenian schools, or in any other community organizations is not introduced as the real country where you need to try yourself at least 6 months of your life or 1 year of your life you need to dedicate living in Armenia or going through the right program. So that's why people, when they send their kids to get an education, they don't take into consideration, they don't know what the market looks like in Armenia and which sectors will be the most needed in midterm perspective. And this creates additional challenges. So if people consider moving to Armenia with their kids, they are planning to move to Armenia when their kids will grow up and will finish the university, they really need to take in consideration the local market. That's another thing which I would like to mention. And hopefully, in several years' time, we'll have a more visible, more reasonable approach in the diaspora, where Armenia will not be just introduced as the country of the past, of the glorious or tragic past, but also as the country, the real country of today and tomorrow. So maybe I'll stop here. I'll just mention that in general, employment is the biggest type of request which we get as Repat Armenia. We have around 1,000 applicants per year. Half of them are repatriates who have already moved to Armenia. Half of them are potential repatriates. So around 60% of request is from people who are looking for an employment. Another 10-15% are related to creating jobs or studying social initiatives in Armenia. And the rest is more about networking, about soft landing, about education for kids, about brokers, about moving personal belongings, and just the only thing which I'll mention, and several speakers actually talk about this, is definitely several sectors in Armenia are really developing quite quickly, and you just need to be in the loop. You just need to be in touch with our organizations. You need to use all the existing opportunities to get your place here in Armenia. And networking is extremely important. Meeting with the right people is very important here. And here, both Birthright, ABC, Repat, Coaf, and all other organizations can be of great support to you.
Thank you so much, Vartan. That also brought up a broader question in my mind of how as a nation we can be so much more organized, and we're working towards it, of course. But the question of how can we organize ourselves better to bridge those gaps and to fulfill all the needs locally and not to have misplaced youth or other. And on that note, because everyone gave a great introduction of who they are and what their challenges were, or let's not call them challenges at this point, I'd like to invite a few people who would want to come up here to ask their questions to this great panel of people who have answers ready and want you to ask those questions. So anyone and everyone in the audience, please raise your hands and I'll bring you up here and you can ask your questions regarding this topic of what are the challenges for non-locals, because I know a few of you are moving to Armenia and I don't want to name you out here, or a few of you might have the idea of moving to Armenia, or some of you are already in Armenia and have a question regarding the challenges. So please raise your hands and all questions are welcome. And I'm not going to force you, but I'm expecting someone to raise their hands because as of yet there is no one. And now we have Sharig Chaparian from the US who's coming up here, and hi Sharig, Lavis, and Tallinn.
Hi, yes, Slavic.
Festach. I have to use Festach and Jiger in all of my rooms, regardless of how formal it is. That's just me. Hi Tallinn.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. So, Shaik, you're first and time. Perfect. She unmuted. She muted herself. Shaik, what's your question?
Yes, so I know Sevan, I don't know if he remembers me, but I was in the process of actually going to Birthright and participating, but COVID happened and then I started my PA program, so I never got the chance. But I have a question for Laura as well. So you mentioned that there were some challenges for diasporans coming in, but what about the medical community? I'm really interested in like having bearings and understandings in Armenia with the medical community there in the near future. So I was wondering if anyone has an input on that. And yeah, thank you.
Just a quick question. Do you mean like any field in the medical field? Any area or is there a specific area that you're actually focusing on?
Well, I'll be certified as a physician assistant. So it's technically like a doctor or physician, but I was just wondering if anyone has any knowledge within the healthcare field or anyone has moved from the States to Armenia to help with the healthcare field at all, and how I could proceed
Yeah,
with that.
definitely. There's I'll take a stab and then anybody else can join in. But based on what I know, I actually know personally of about I think 5 specific people, 3 of which are from the US who have moved here. 2 have moved with the ECORDS program, which is the Commissioner of Diaspora Affairs. They're working in the Ministry of Health. There's another one who is a nurse from Lebanon. She actually got a job at Wigmore Clinic here. I think it all depends on how you apply and what you're applying for. The ECORDS program, this one physician and the other one was in public health. They both applied to actually move here to test it out. I think it was Vartan who mentioned, coming here for several months or for a period of a year to test things out. And that's what they had done. And they were in the medical field. I don't know exactly what challenges they went through, but with the ECORDS, it was pretty straightforward. There was a website and you can actually apply for it, and you would be volunteering in a specific area, either ministry or a clinic or a hospital that would use your voluntary services, and you would be paid a symbolic fee. And that could be the start to actually building your network in different areas. I cannot say more about what future you would have here because it all depends on what you would do, but that would be a great starting point, I think.
Okay, thank you so much.
And Sharik, of course, I remember your name, of course, and hopefully we'll see you again. We'll see you here soon. As far as people who are medical professionals already, certified, licensed physicians, and so on, I also personally know of individuals who have made the move here from Middle Eastern countries or from the USA, including dentists. Um, and I know of several physicians from California who are planning to move out here in the next couple of months. Pretty high up in their medical sector. As far as being experts. I think again, I guess going back to what I was mentioning earlier. I guess the more relevant question might be for someone to find that answer themselves as to, does it make sense for me as someone who's now a medical professional to move to Armenia, and kind of take small steps in that area, join some of the programs that are available in Armenia that give you the answers on a day by day, being here on the ground basis, so that you would get the self assurance that yes, this does make sense, or no, it doesn't make sense for me, personally. So yes, there are the other examples, but I think what eventually is the winning answer for you is the one that you experience yourself, and that you discover yourself. So again, programs like like Birthright and others could be good platforms to help you move in that direction.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sevan.
I'll just add a couple of words. Look, we have at least a couple of clinics that I know that has been established by repats. One is Maple Leafs Clinic, repatriated from Canada. What we can do for you is actually we can help you with networking. So we'll just connect you so that you have a possibility informally to chat with them. And through them and several other professionals, repat professionals, you'll be able to make a better understanding of how it works in Armenia and what are the opportunities, salary levels, and the demand. So that's number one. Just feel free to contact Repat Armenia. The second thing is that we have Armenian Repatriates Network, a closed Facebook group, which has more than 10,000 members. Most of them are either experienced repats or potential repats, partially also diasporans and professional locals. And this is also a great ecosystem where these type of questions can be asked, and many people will be able to help you and provide useful info, tips, insights, and even connections. I also know that there are a couple of other initiatives like Progressive Health that are currently looking for medical professionals to go, for example, to Stepanakert, and a couple of other places to work for short-term or mid-term. So there are some opportunities, but we need to work with you directly. So just apply to Repat Armenia and let's follow up.
Thank you, Vartan.
If I may to add a couple of words, Sharik, I represent COAF, probably you know, and one of our main directions is healthcare, actually, because we work in 4 directions: healthcare, education, social services, we call them child and family services, and economic development in rural areas. And pretty often we have volunteers joining us as with medical professional, like physicians or medical practitioners, general practitioners, and they work. We have doctors who work in rural areas with local doctors, providing medical services, and also in the sphere of capacity building. And we pretty often have also volunteers also from the States. We had a lot of volunteers from England coming and working with our volunteering in rural communities. So in case you are interested as a starting point, also volunteering in the medical field, you can also just check out our website, coaf.org, and there's a section there, join us, an internship section, and you can just send your CV and application and just choose the section healthcare programs, and we'll just look your application and get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I love how everyone's offering, and for those who didn't join us in this conversation today, it's such a missed opportunity for them. And I love how everyone's showing their support and opening up their networks. And Shaik, take the shot, make that
I
leap.
will definitely in the near future. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shaik, for that question. Talin, good to have you up here.
Thank you. First, I want to say shut the outbreak. I'm so happy all of you guys have made the move, and I hope that more of us will do the same. My question was more about the logistics of everything, like what paperwork is needed, like should I get citizenship or residency, like what do taxes look like, stuff like
The big question.
Well, again, I would encourage you to contact our integration managers via Facebook or email or the website repatriarmenia.org. It very much depends on where you're coming from, but in general, you have both opportunities to work here with a citizenship, Armenian citizenship, or just having a long-term visa, 10-year special residency status or 5-year visa is enough for you to apply and to get a work permit, let's call it that way. Hopefully this year, well, hopefully, because I don't know, we have the elections and potential changes, but High Commissioner's Office has been planning to establish integration center in Armenia, which is supposed to deal with all the procedures related to repatriates and diasporans here in the country through a one window model. So hopefully it will start working, and all of our life, including repatriate Armenians' life, will become easier and more structured. But so far, just contact our integration managers that will provide you all the necessary information.
But I would like to also chime in here. We receive a lot of applications, and we've had non-Armenian citizens actually work for us. So the process in short and brief, let's say, for you to have an idea, Talim, is that definitely as an Armenian, you would be able to have a work permit. Non-Armenian, it's a different process. The company or the organization has to actually apply to the Ministry of Social Affairs to actually obtain the permission. But when you're an Armenian, even if you're not a local citizen, and in the process of getting your 10-year residency visa, you can still apply and you would still obtain a work permit. The only difference is with a non-local and a local, and I hate using this term, but it's the only way I can actually differentiate a citizen and a non-citizen, is that regardless of whether you have a visa or a 10-year residential permit, you still would have a year-by-year a contract, which would be a kind of like a temporary contract. So even if you live here for 10 years, every year your contract would have to be renewed. It's not a big deal because the company you would work with, if you're there permanently, they would just have to actually do this additional paperwork. But I mean, lots of people have done it and they continue to, they just don't have permanent contracts. That's all.
And
It's just a minor detail.
And what if she decides to get an Armenian passport?
If she gets the Armenian passport, then you would not have that issue of having a what do you call it, a yearly renewable contract. It would just be a permanent or an indefinite contract.
And would you recommend her get an Armenian passport, and how would that affect her current?
I don't see it affecting it at all. I mean, it's the person, it's the individual's decision. Obviously, I mean, many people decide or they opt to come here to just have a work and a residential permit, and they haven't had any problems with their contracts. It's just an additional bureaucratic documentation that you have to renew it on a yearly basis. And other people have actually made the move because they feel that having an Armenian citizenship just makes things easier, and that's the only difference. It's just a bureaucratic administrative procedure, nothing more. It doesn't make you less important for the organization or more important.
Very well said, Talim. Do you have a question that wasn't answered in those two answers?
No, that was perfect. Thank you so much for your help.
Thank you for the answers that were given. And Mariana, sorry, I said it in an Italian way. Mariana?
Hello, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So just a bit to say where I'm from. So I live in Oxford, UK with my family, and I am the senior member of the Oxford University Armenian Society, which is kind of a fancy word to say that I basically manage the community here. And and I think this talk was really helpful, because this sort of brings to the point that we have these lengthy hours of conversations with students and community members on, let's go back, shall we go back and live in our country, how we do this, etc. So I think this network is very useful for me also, kind of to help students if they have any questions and direct them in the right thing. But my question is a different one, and sorry if this might not fit into the overall picture of the discussion today. I mean, the dynamics of that conversation changed a lot in the pandemic year, in that we suddenly realized that we can actually manage factories remotely. And given that Armenia has lost so much resource, and basically that resource is elsewhere in the diaspora, with a soul back in the country, I just wonder, what is your view for any opportunities of diaspora remotely working for Armenia? And when I say remotely working, I mean mostly like volunteer work, being engaged in sort of consultancy, being engaged in providing training, etc. Basically, people like me who would like to bring that resource and all the accumulated years of studies and experience back to the country. How do you think Armenia is ready for that, basically? Sorry. Thank you.
That's one of the biggest questions that have been asked previously on Clubhouse Armenians rooms, in the club. So I'd love to hear the answer to that question from any of you.
May I?
Of course.
Yeah. Actually, I think Armenia is quite ready. At least I can say that for the private sector. I'm not sure, and I can't talk in the name of the public sector, but I guess private sector is quite ready for that. And during also the pandemic, actually, we had already the experience of working remotely inside Armenia, but also outside Armenia. Freelancing of Armenians for other countries is a common already experience, but also I guess we are ready to also hire people in diaspora out of Armenia working for Armenians. For example, I will speak about the communications field as I'm in this field, and that's my field. Pretty often we need people writing some content, people who are outside Armenia and who know the realities and the atmosphere of a certain country. For example, if we need a piece for the US, let's say, audience, sometimes we need someone who is a US insider and would like to have him or her writing like remotely for us to create a content. And this can be an option in the field of communication. That's pretty much possible, especially for content creation. So I think, Mariana, there is a room for this. There is an opportunity for this type of work, and you should just try to reach out to companies who are open for remote work in IT sphere, but not only in IT sphere, also for NGOs and funds, especially those who have audience outside Armenia. I guess those who have audience outside Armenia would be much more interested in this kind of collaboration, let's say.
Thank you.
Also, Mariana, there are efforts now. I know of one specifically to create a huge online platform to involve as many parts of Armenian reality here in Armenia and outside, to connect individuals to projects, individuals to opportunities, even remotely. The organization is called High Connect, and they're still I think in their beta form, beta platform, trying to put things together on this platform. And I know that we're working with them to kind of test it out and hash it out. So that's one thing that I think is going to come online. Another thing is a lot of people by virtue of real connections they make while they are in Armenia, they set up for themselves a lot of customized personal opportunities to continue working with the networks and organizations that they connected with here in Armenia, even remotely after they leave. So I think if one were to ask, can we do things remotely without coming to Armenia ever? I think it becomes maybe a bit more challenging. The depth or the breadth of opportunities might be lesser, but then a platform like High Connect, I think, is working on that. But if someone were to be here, then I think many doors open for prolonged and even remote um, connection.
I would just add to what Sevan has said that I know at least the 10 initiatives like High Connect, which has been announced. I don't know if all of them will be implemented. Hopefully not all of them will be implemented. But hopefully some of them will be implemented because there's a great need for diaspora's engagement without physical move or with a partial move to Armenia, which is also the case, which should be considered by people. If they want to spend 1 month a year in Armenia, or a couple of months a year, it's also kind of repatriation and kind of full-scale engagement with the country. Please use our network, Armenian Repatriation Network, for these type of questions, and our staff members, integration managers, are not only helping people with repatriation, but also are now trying to help with diaspora's engagement, because that diaspora's engagement is the pre-repatriation process, which quite often brings to a physical move in midterm perspective.
Uh,
Yeah, sorry, Sevan. I just want to add to what Vartan said. During the pandemic, when the entire world was in lockdown, both Birthright Armenia and Armenian Volunteer Corps shifted into remote volunteering mode. And we had many, many dozens and dozens of very successful experiences and partnerships of remote volunteers and volunteer job sites here in Armenia. And actually, on the AVC side, one of our remote volunteers had such an amazing experience that he was, after 6-8 months of volunteering remotely, he was actually hired by the company that he was volunteering for and has now moved to Armenia. So it's definitely doable.
Gado, is it possible for us as the panelists to ask questions ourselves? Because I have a very important question here.
Of
Here,
course.
all of the panelists have these little microphone icons with a red slash through it. That means they're muted. How come Tallinn and Mariana have those icons on the left, those birthday emojis? I want one of those.
I
They're
love that
newcomers.
question.
They're newcomers.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome, Nika.
I should have briefed you on
I
that
want
one.
one of those.
I
I think
think it's
these are
because
party girls.
they're new members. Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
no idea.
Okay, I give up hope.
You had one once upon a time, Sevan. We had to take it from you. It was only for a week.
I've been demoted. Okay, thanks.
No, you've been promoted. Always, always.
By the way, as far
There
as I
were.
know, today is Sevan's first Clubhouse talk. Am I right, Sevan?
That's true. That's true. So I should get a emoji.
Discrimination.
We need to give you a bottle of champagne, Sevan, not an emoji.
That's right. I need to take care of my pains here. Thanks.
Love that question. It brought lightness to the room. Before I bring more people up, and I want to encourage everyone down in the audience to please come up, ask a question. You're probably thinking about moving to Armenia. You probably had a question, even if you're not going to be moving to Armenia anytime soon, of how the dynamic is. But as a Beirutsi with a think rafa, as they say, klufe, chinge borgesen lipanansinere, let's say
That was good, Garo.
as a Beirutsi moving to Armenia, I'm not really a Beirutsi anymore, 7 years in Europe, but how does the work dynamic work? I mean, how does that go about? I'm a Beirutsi. I go to an agency that's fully Armenians from Armenia. How does that how is that gap breached? Bridged? Sorry.
Are you talking about like the cultural issue here between a newcomer and a
Yeah,
background?
exactly. Because I'm sure, knowing myself, I'll have some challenges, but what are those challenges like, and how does
Hi,
one overcome it?
can I go in?
Hi, Arla.
Hi,
As
my name is Armenian, and I've been trying to go to Armenia. To be honest, I'm a Beiruti as well, and I've been like there for 2 months. I worked there, and seriously, when I saw this, like the title, I got in directly. Um, to be honest, I was like I kind of struggled there because like I don't know the language, I don't know Russian, and since I was trying to get into university, it was way harder back then since the Beirut blast happened and everything. So my family and I have tried to move there, and it didn't work, to be honest. I came back. Half of my family is there, and half of us is here. Basically, I'm trying to like study here, finish my studies, and go there. But I'm not sure of the opportunities there because like you have to learn their language because like their Russian words to get into like positions, to get into the jobs there. I don't know if
Oh,
you got me.
you're describing a problem I think that many of us have actually gone through, Arla. And just to kind of combine Garo's question and your question, I think it's just the idea. The problem I had was that I was too arrogant when I moved here, and I'm being very frank. I was completely arrogant. You know, how come they're not speaking clean Armenian? What does that mean, prosta? What does that mean, razvarot? What does it mean, like, how dare they not, destroy the language by compounding? And then I realized I did the same thing when I was in Canada. I mean, I was like, mixing English words with, so it actually meant that I had to come down to earth. And for me, and I'm not saying that you're all arrogant. This was
It's not
my kind
about
of,
that.
that was,
I mean,
no,
I
but I know. I think my problem is that I started to really integrate and really try to understand the people I was working with. And that for me took a while. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in 1 month. And it was just something that even the Eastern dialect for me was a problem because I wasn't a very clean Armenian speaker in the first place. I didn't go to Armenian school. Like, I mean, in Canada, in Hamilton is like this boony land of very, Saturday school of Armenian. So I had to make a lot of effort, both in terms of the Armenian, both in terms of the Russian. And I have to say that, it was kind of a big wake up call for me. If you want to talk about, self discovery, that was a huge shift for me because I was able to really understand that I was the one that had to make those shifts for myself, not my surrounding. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to have that challenge if you want to use that word. I felt it was a very good
yes,
learning and
true.
self discovery experience. But the dynamic there is always going to be the same. I mean, it's wonderful to see now. I'm going to give it just an example. It's great to see even restaurant is, people, you see diasporans working, whereas 10 years ago, I know for a fact that, restaurants or companies resisted hiring or recruiting people from outside. And now you see a really good mix, even in corporations. At Synopsis, I see a whole bunch. At Pixar, you see the idea is now there's a bigger, synergy. And when you talk to, and when I talk to my colleagues, they say that they feel that there's a good sense of learning from both sides. So the work dynamic is always going to be a challenge because there will always be something that is different. But you just have to keep a very big open mind. What is it about them that they're so robust, or gardzar or dinj? And there's a reason for that. Whereas in my case, I'm smiling and saying hi, how are you to everybody, and they find that that's weird. Coming from a Canadian traditional way of you have to, smile and say hi to everybody. They thought I was weird. So it was really a big learning curve, but there's an increasing number of diasporan Armenians applying and being accepted regardless of their lack of Russian and regardless of their lack of Armenian. It just depends on the job. Depends on the qualifications. It depends. You won't have a big
Yes,
problem with Scrum Masters, but
I actually applied somewhere where they know English, but the thing happened that I wanted something to like to grow my career, and like majoring in HR, human resources management. So I didn't want to like stay there and like have this job. The job is it was something like you call people and like talk in English and try to get them to like sell something. I didn't like it because like it was that way. But if I'm going to apply somewhere as an HR manager, let's say, I need to learn Russian. This is what I'm saying. I have to learn because my employees are going to have like the Russian language in their career and when they're talked in their emails, you know.
I don't know Russian. I'm the head of HR.
Wow,
May I
nice to
add,
meet
may
you.
I,
Good
as a
one.
local from Armenia, I would just say that, you know, of course, I'm not going to deny that we lose a lot of Russian expressions, a lot of Russian words, but I assure you, and I can prove that, assure you that younger generation, they don't speak Russian. I mean, that's a myth if you think that everybody in Armenia knows Russian perfectly, and that's a myth if you think that your employees or your co-workers, your colleagues are going to speak Russian to you. Not at all. Using a bunch of Russian words doesn't mean that they know Russian, actually. I had the experience when working for another company, hiring Russian-speaking call center operators, call center agents. We were in a big trouble because we had around 100 call contact center agents, English and Armenian speaking, and just 4 or 5 Russian speaking. That was really hard to find a person speaking Russian. But what I wanted to mention, as a local, I really please diaspora Armenians, Beirutis, Syriatis, come to Armenia. Actually, we also need you. It's not that only you need Armenia, but Armenia needs you. And I can prove that even during the Soviet era in 1940s, whenever there was a wave of income from diaspora to Soviet Armenia, Armenia got nicer and nicer, richer. You brought a wonderful and awesome culture. You brought the culture of coffee drinking, actually. That's a joke, but I mean, I am extremely happy, and I'm very frank now. Whenever I listen to Western Armenian dialect, which is awesome, which is very, very nice, and it's a pity that we lack the knowledge of Western Armenian here in Armenia. So you should come, you should fill the streets of Yerevan and the whole Armenia with Western Armenian dialect. And I assure you that Armenia has changed a lot, also thanks to those Armenians from diaspora, because we have a lot of people from Syria, from Lebanon, also, as Lara mentioned, in restaurants, in cafes, and they changed the culture of service even because they brought a new culture, better service, another understanding, another point of view, and that really makes us richer. And we need this diversity in Armenia. Otherwise, we are, as Lara said, we are very clustered. So we need these Armenians with different cultural backgrounds. So please come to Armenia and fill in our streets with Western Armenian dialects, please.
I
Wow,
think
love it.
there's a great conversation going on. I really like it. I will just add a couple of things. There are certain extremes in Armenia yet, but they are changing. To be frank, during the last 10 years that I'm here, actually 11 years, the environment and soft landing process became much better, for sure. And the readiness for the locals to accept you as you are and to interact with you is much better than it used to be. But the extremes are as follows. First of all, employers, when they place vacancies, their assumption is basically that most of the applicants are locals, and for the locals they usually put Russian as a requirement even if they don't need it, because they think that in any case, like, local Armenians do study Russian at school, right? That's one extreme. So that's the one side. So don't look at this requirement as a must, because in most of the cases, if it's a competitive vacancy, usually the combination of the Armenian, Eastern Armenian or Western or conversational Armenian in general, plus fluent English, is much more important than the knowledge of Russian. Not in every single sector, because, for example, if you look at the tourism or hospitality sector, we have a lot of tourists coming from Russia. Here, definitely the knowledge of Russian might be a plus. But again, they might have different professionals who focus on different tourists from different countries. But another extreme is the following: that people, especially from the Middle East, who come to Armenia, some of them even they're proud of not understanding Eastern Armenian after living here for 5 or 10 years. And they justify it with the fact that they do not betray to the Western Armenian, which is a nonsense from my point of view, because if you learn Eastern Armenian, if you use it, you do not betray Western Armenia. There is no contradiction at all. But somehow there is kind of the cultural element. As the sooner people try to get rid of this type of challenge, which they put for themselves, the better is for them. The sooner people start getting integrated with locals, the better for them. So, for example, what we do as an integration process, first of all, we help newcomers to meet with experienced repatriates. But our goal is actually to make the full integration with the local society. So this is just the first phase where you meet with people like you who did the same move, who met with the similar challenges, who had the similar questions. That makes your integration quicker and better. But in fact, if you want to be 100% integrated, you need to become Hayastansi. And Hayastansi doesn't mean that you should
To be
refuse
honest,
from Arevmat Aire,
Barton,
Ayo.
to be honest, not all Western Armenians or Western talking Armenians are like that. Like, I mean, let's say our family, my family, or my friends, they know they started learning and they love it. Like, maybe those people that you met are not, they are not getting into it, but like, I know many people that love it and they are actually talking like the Eastern Armenians. So it's not true actually. Like,
No,
they
I know.
might be
Yeah,
might
yeah.
be exceptions, but like, not all of them are like that. Actually, we listen here to like, we open TV and listen to your conversation, to your TV shows and everything. We love it. It
True,
doesn't,
true. But
it's
I'm
not
talking about
about it.
extremes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Arlajan, I
there are
know.
said that
definitely
there are
extremes.
extremes. I didn't mention that this is kind of a mainstream. I said that there are certain extremes that we should avoid. That's the thing which I'm
I
trying
get you.
to kind of put my message. Yeah.
Completely
I,
agree.
I think I
my
just want
belief,
to.
sorry, my belief is basically that actually in all schools, all Armenian local schools, people need to study the history of diaspora because people really don't know what diaspora is. That's 100%. And the second is it would be great if locals also study Western Armenian. It should be in school because we are one nation with two major dialects and with two ways of writing. So certain unification should take place for sure. But at the same time, if a full unification is impossible, which most probably is, so we need also to prepare locals for that cultural contact with the Western Armenians.
Yes, usually I met a lot of locals there that were a bit like racistic, like, you guys are not Armenian enough, you guys are not, you don't know how to talk Armenian, we're not understanding you. Actually, they do understand us, but they just like, they want to not understand. Like, they are they are making it like as if they aren't.
There is a
And
very
it's like
easy
they
description
have
of
this,
Arla,
they
just very quickly, yeah,
yeah,
sorry. Look, when people say you don't speak Armenian here, they mean you don't speak Eastern Armenian. But
yes.
locals never say Eastern Armenian. They would never say to you, Duk Arevela Hayren çe kosum, because it's a nonsense for them. They never use Arevela Hayren word, you know? That's why when they say Duk çe kosum Hayren, they mean, do you speak, don't you speak my dialect? So basically the official language. That's the thing. They don't want to say that you don't speak the
I
language.
mean, I have
Simply,
met
I'd
they
like
want
to
to
people.
say,
add
why
to,
don't you speak the Eastern Armenian?
if I could, I'd like to add to that. Growing up in a diaspora, like that was, I know like Glendale. Whenever I say I'm from California, everyone thinks it's Glendale. They think it's very Eastern Armenian, but mine was very, very Western. Although, like like I said, I didn't speak fluently for a long time. I did get this sort of, even from Western diasporans or Eastern, this sometimes ostracization of, like, you're not Armenian enough because you don't speak fluently, or because you don't know this much history, or you don't know what these foods are, or whatever the case may be. And I was actually pleasantly surprised to find that when coming here, I found less of that than I did in my own, like, not like my friend group, but just more people that I would meet out in the world that were Armenian. Here, they're happy that you're learning, whether it's Eastern or Western. Like, no one has ever asked me. They're just happy that I'm learning. They're happy that we're here, and that, like, as long as an effort is being made, so far I've found that that's greatly appreciated here in Hayastan.
It depends on your circle. like if your circle are like young people, they do understand that you're coming from a diaspora. But if they like if you met people that are a bit like in age a bit bigger, I don't know, like they are kind of racistic when it's come like once I had this experience once, and like they were like, you guys are not Armenian enough, you guys don't know the ethics, you're not they have these things. It can happen.
I definitely have heard of cases like that, and I've had friends who have come back from Hassan with similar experiences. I think just like it would be inaccurate to generalize the entire diaspora as a certain way, it's also inaccurate to generalize,
True.
a lot of the like an entire generation of older Armenians. You also have to keep in mind a lot of these older Armenians grew up in the Soviet Union, where contact with countries outside the Soviet Union was very limited, and there was nationalism, as it still is very prominent here, whether in positive and in negative ways sometimes. They grew up during a time where there was the USSR, there was Armenia, and like everything else was um, a, a lot less known, I think, than it is today. And they didn't, there are a lot of things that they didn't have exposure to. So that might be, I'm not trying to make excuses for that sort of like alienation, but I do think that one should keep an open mind when talking with different types of people here and understand like where their perspective might have been formed, because it is important as like an Armenian coming back here to, especially if you're trying to reconnect with the people, um, understanding like how different their upbringing might have been from the one you had, regardless of where in the world you grew up. Like the Armenian experience, although tied by so many common factors, is really unique across the world because we're so spread out.
I just want to say, I mean, too bad that I didn't, when I moved here, there wasn't ABC or Birthright or even repat. I think those kinds of programs would have enabled me to at least, I know so many people that have moved here after they volunteered with either ABC or with Birthright, because they've been able to really understand the different situations they're in, really test it out, see what they need in terms of paperwork, taxation, and all. It kind of eases the way of coming into. So all these questions about how does it work in terms of the cultural dynamic or the work dynamic and the ethics. And I think those experiences that Birthright and ABC have allow and enable you to be able to taste it, hamdesel, like this, to taste it and to understand what the different dynamics are, how you can actually, integrate yourself, and what are the things that you need to learn or to overcome. I think it's some people prefer that instead of just diving right in and taking that kind of a risk. So I really encourage you to try that.
I think most of us can agree that by moving to Armenia and making that leap is us having to leave our comfort zone one way or another. So we have to take the punches as they come and try to adapt to them if our objective is to live there and to work there and to contribute to the economy and to the overall greater good. So I think you did go through a rough patch, probably, Arlene, but I think for the most of the people up here in the panel, they went through similar things, but it's so far back in their memories that at this point they just take it as a nice bittersweet memory. But anyways, doesn't affect their approach or how they live their lives currently. In Armenia, I completely understand also the language barrier and how we have to also feel accommodated in our Hyrenic in a way because we grew up speaking a certain dialect, and how much of that for us makes us Armenian. And yeah, again, it's what I'm chiming it back to what Lara you said initially when you moved the first time to Armenia, and you didn't say ego. What did you say? That you had to
My
arrogance.
arrogance,
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah,
I had to pop my bubble.
yeah. So I think from both ends we need to pop our bubbles and just uh, live with the fact that we speak different dialects, we have different upbringings, and it's also what gives the avcaz, av biber to being Armenian. We have so much diversity to bring. We have so much knowledge, so much background to give to that one country that has called itself our home, and we have to get to it as much as we can. So on that note, anyone from the audience who isn't speaking would like to come up, please raise your hand, and we can give the panel another question to tackle, and let's see where that one goes. So please raise your hands. I know a few people are working with Armenia, have contributed previously, and are professionals in their own countries who could bring so much to the country. So I'd like you to come up, ask a question, big or small. Come on.
We also have some other non-local Armenians that are currently working in Armenia in the audience.
If you don't raise your hand, I'm going to call you up one by one. So someone raise.
No. Oh no.
I have that
People,
approach.
raise your hand. Raise your hand.
And brutal, because there are different backgrounds that we can. I mean, I know a few of the people in the room. Some have been actually panelists, and they.
Let me until people maybe start to think about the questions that they have. And because I may have to step out in the next few minutes, but I just want to say that I know that a lot of people ask me certain questions. Maybe I could just give a few things that I would say to be careful, or to caution people, especially in terms of characteristical or patterns that employers look for. I know that there are companies that seem to, really care, or about the age, or the gender, but more and more in companies or organizations, both private and non-private, are starting to slowly shy away from that kind of discriminatory way of working. So even in the fact of, if you're going to be applying to specific jobs that you found either from Career Center or staff.am, or from the company's website, just make sure that you really understand what the company's about. Some people call me and say, I've applied, and you called me for an interview even online, but I didn't get a call back. And then I have to give them a whole bunch of explanations that, yeah, you applied, but you never took the time to actually look at what the organization does. You came into the interview, thinking just because you have, a server integration services experience, that we should, encourage, you because you come from, I don't know, the UK. But no, it doesn't work that way. Just like if you were to apply in the UK, you would make sure that you understand what the company principles are, what they do, because you will be asked questions, and the difference will be between the different applicants is not just your qualification skills, but how much effort you made to look into what the organization or the company does. It just shows that you've done that homework. And then well, the other problem is, what kind of salaries do people ask for? And they'll say, well, I'm applying from Lebanon. I'm going to apply for the marketing job at, I don't know, so-and-so, Beeline, whatever it is. And I want to ask for, I don't know, they'll throw an amount. Check what the market is. There are people, like I know that Repat has these kinds of support groups that they'll give you, maybe not a salary matrix, but it'll give you an idea of what the market range is for specific jobs. Maybe not all, but there are these market surveys that allow you to have an idea of what the salary range is. I'm talking salary, not income, obviously, because some companies give bonuses, they give, insurances and things like that. But just to have an idea of what it is. It is very different from Canada, for instance, but you shouldn't underestimate yourself and neither overestimate yourself. So the question is, how do you prepare yourself for an interview, and how do you address that question like, what's your salary expectations? Always do the research before the interview. Look for ranges. There are people that can help you, and that's all. But these are the important things. The language concern, like I said, some positions we really don't. We may say, like I think Vartan had mentioned it. We may mention in the job announcement that Russian and Armenian and English are a must. But if it depends on the job, and it depends, if they're not going to be dealing with their headquarters in Russia, or they're not going to be dealing with customers in Armenian, then it's not that important. We've had people that applied from Syria that had no Russian, no very good written Armenian, but they became our key account salespeople. They're just examples. So you shouldn't be discouraged. Depending on what the earlier colleague said, it's what your will is, what you want to do, what your intention is by coming here or by trying. Everything is possible. In fact, it really is the best time to come, regardless of what's happened in the past 6 to 8 months. It really is the best time because there have been more opportunities now than I've ever experienced. from these different organizations and companies opening up and investing in Armenia. So that's it for me.
Amazingly said. I want to ask a loaded question, actually, and I don't know how it can turn the conversation, but it's a short one, but it's not a sweet one. We're talking about Armenians moving from Lebanon. We're talking about Armenians moving from different countries. It's fine. The culture shock at most is probably mainly the being Western dialect, Eastern dialect, and then the cultural differences of being from France or Lebanon or wherever you're from is basically what you're used to growing up. But my one question is, because we always shy away from this one, and I've hosted a few rooms previously tackling a topic similar to this. How are Armenians from Turkey looking to move to Armenia and work there to contribute to the economy with their Turkish passport being accepted? And how is their journey, more or less, in Armenia these days? And what are the challenges they face, if anyone can answer the question? If not, we can skip to Albert's question.
I don't have direct experience, but I do have a friend who lived in Turkey. She was rather young, I think maybe 14 or 15 when she moved here. She did talk about problems with school, like people calling her Turkish, whatever, even though she's of Armenian descent, specifically because her last name sounds, it's more Russian. It doesn't have the IAN or YAN. So all I can really add to this is that I do think that there could be some, um, social like pushback, but I don't know much about like logistic difficulties of getting a job or going to school.
Good.
Well, we have several people in the community who moved from police. I haven't heard of any problems, to be frank, but I can't guarantee that there are no problems like Blue has mentioned. In terms of passports, I don't think that they have any like issues. I even know several people who are Hemshils, like Hamshensis, but Muslim Armenians. Well, and they are visiting Armenia with a great love, and we are always in touch with Erol and Ahmad and several others. So I think that they have, in general, no more problems than any other potential repatriates or diasporans. Maybe in some cases, you would hear from locals like these type of questions. But again, you really need to understand when locals do challenge you with these type of questions, do they want to insult you, or they simply are not aware and they just want to understand better whether you are of Armenian origin or not? For example, that's a very clear test for you to understand the real purpose of why people are asking this question. Is it really to insult you? I guess not.
We've also had several participants over the last years from Istanbul joining us here at Birthright Armenia and staying for many months. And we haven't heard of any issues of stories of discrimination or harassment because of their last names or the country where they've come from. So I think everyone should be encouraged to be part of this movement to Armenia at this critical stage.
Very well said. Vartan, you want to add?
Garjan, I think with Albert and Narod who joined us
Yes,
and
exactly. Yes, Albert. And Arut can add actually to the question I was speaking about.
Parevnar, Galusakorinja.
Yes, Ayo.
Borisam parevnar samaynadan. Yani I did not have a problem as a tourist, but I did not know how, if I migrate, I can face any problem or not. And but Iprev Bolisanans Panganamusal, it's very difficult to give your Turkish passport in that gates, but we are talking Armenian, and then I didn't face any problem until today. But I don't know after this war or this situation, maybe I can face any problem. But until today, I didn't. Yes.
Naro, just say Hokis or Yavrik, and they will probably forget about your
Gigaris
passport.
or Fıstık is my favorite too. No, because these questions are actually critical because we have so many Armenians who are looking into moving. And my cousin wrote about the Armenians of Turkey, the secret nation, Hamza, etc., etc. These are a major group of Armenians who genuinely feel who are patriotic, who do intend to move at some point, do contribute, and how their transition would be. Of course, at this point of time, they have a lot of difficulties to overcome, and it's not up to us to say whether that can change by today or tomorrow. And we have to take it step by step. And I don't want to move so much into that topic, but I'm happy that you shared your answers, Lara, Sevan, Vartan. And now we have Albert and Laro. Thank you so much for giving your personal input. Jigar. So, Albert, hi, thank you for coming up. Your questions, please.
Okay. Hi, guys. First of all, thank you for having me, and thanks for all this listening to everyone's perspective regarding the working for Armenians, locals, and foreigners. It was really fruitful listening to all of everyone's ideas. But over the past few conversations, maybe some of them I either missed out or we haven't discussed yet. Is, let's say we were discussing, or you guys were discussing over the past year or so, the COVID situation has developed more opportunities for remote working, and which is also an advantage for locals in Armenia to work remotely. As we were saying, the market in Armenia isn't considered to be as big as other markets. But I mean, if we look at if we look at like on real ground basis, like market basis and trade basis, you know, um, from a perspective of, let's say, I'm not talking about myself. I mean, in general, people from around Armenia, let's say in the Middle East, either Lebanon or Syria or other countries, a lot of Armenians are facing a lot of problems, and they would have, and it would be a privilege for them to have an opportunity to invest in Armenia and continue their businesses from Armenia. So that's one of the questions I would like to ask, if there's any possibility, or there's any what are the advantages or the facilities that Armenia can provide for foreign investments, especially for Armenians, so that they can enhance and even like continue their ventures from their homeland, and in the same time, what are the trade options that they have? So I don't know if this question is like it was diverging to another topic, but I if there's anyone who can give us some insight about this, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Maybe I'll start, and then maybe if my colleagues would like to add, they will join. Look, in general, if we're talking about like repat Armenia is mostly concentrating on voluntary repatriation or prepared repatriation, where people are getting prepared for the physical move to Armenia. It takes time. It takes certain things to be done before moving to the country. It's easy in that case in terms of integration and in terms of success, rather than in emergency cases like Syria or like Lebanon after the blast or after the financial crisis, right? So my assumption is as follows. In general, for the country like Armenia, with limited opportunities, to be frank, not in all sectors, but in many sectors, the opportunities are limited to a small local market. There should be certain programs developed by the state together with the diaspora institutions and funding in order to support targeted repatriation from certain communities and their integration. If we look at Israeli experience, they managed to bring 3 million Olim, repatriates, during the last 70 years, out of whom 2 million were kind of a forced move waves. From the Soviet Union, more than 1 million, and around 800,000 from Arab countries, right? So they would be never able to absorb 2 million people, especially taking into consideration that some years they were having more than 200,000 repatriates per year, right? Without a very strong support from the diaspora. The support is not a welfare support, but the diaspora was developing certain industries, was helping with integration, with soft landing, spending money on integration, spending money on developing new opportunities, business opportunities, jobs, and boosting exports. So I think what should be done, and here is a certain level of conflict which takes place between Armenia and some of the diasporan communities and organizations, is that there is no clear vision about how the Armenian world should look like in 20 or 30 years' time. And in some of those communities which are under threat, what is the best strategy for people who would like to leave? But do they need to leave and come to Armenia as a first choice or not? Should be a certain targeted program developed by the community and the Armenia for fostering repatriation or for providing a better soft landing. So there are a lot of questions. Unfortunately, at the moment, there is no clear policy and approach from the government side in Armenia, and there is no clear priority of this type of repatriation in the communities, especially in the Middle East, right? Because I understand that some of the community members and leaders, they would like to preserve our presence there, and this is really important because we have churches, we have schools, we have uh, a lot of assets developed, and we have a certain type of influence in the countries which are important for Armenia as well. But at the same time, what I see that in midterm perspective, both Armenia as a state and the communities are living with their widely closed eyes. So basically, they are not trying to plan and organize the processes. They are simply hoping that things will become better, and that's it.
Yes, that's
So my answer would be, yeah,
exactly. I
sorry.
agree with you exactly, Barton. But don't you think, like we were talking, like this time that we have here, it's like a window of opportunities, and exactly taking as the Israeli example, let's say this window that we have of opportunities is, first of all, there's a lot of opportunities for foreign Armenians, like Armenians of the diaspora, to come to Armenia and to work there, and at the same time, we Armenians, the diaspora, and the government, and the local Armenians, I like obviously they have to plan like a like a movement, like a step by step procedure for investments to be able, for like foreign Armenian investments, not for them to stop in their own countries, but to invest in the same time in parallel in their local homeland. So don't you guys think that this is like an opportunity that should be taken, just should not be taken for granted, I mean?
Well, I agree. It should be done. I hope that kind of the catastrophe of 2020 will force any government, which will be after the elections here, to think about it properly. We are more than happy to lobby a more sound and more solid approach and more proactive approach towards the repatriation. We are personally working on the loan repatriation with the previous government, and with current government we've been working for the last 5 years. Not very successful, to be frank, though we were more or less close to get to the final stage and to the parliamentary discussion in autumn last year, but the war actually broke all of those plans. So hopefully, yeah, we'll be able to upgrade repatriation agenda here. But again, I think there should be a certain consensus and resources put on the table, both by the government and by the state, in order to have a much more effective repatriation. One more thing about businesses. What we always encourage people to do when they come to Armenia and want to start their business is not to do things large scale in the very beginning, especially if they don't have something very solid that they can secure. For example, if they have clients abroad, if they have markets abroad, that's a big benefit, which can make their business plan, business model more or less sustainable. But if they want just to replicate what they do in Lebanon and try to do exactly the same thing in Armenia without proper marketing analysis and understanding of how the Armenian economy works, this might become problematic. So we usually advise people to come and work as employees, if we're talking small businesses, right? As employees for a certain period of time to understand better how the local market works before starting their own business. And the biggest benefit which we can provide and support which we can provide on a personal level is that we have a big network of repatriates, experienced repatriates, and we are able to provide you and connect you with experienced people so that you have a better understanding of the local market, of how and what should be done, and the major mistakes which people make when they come from abroad and start their businesses. And also with professional organizations like accountancy, consultancy companies, which are also ready to provide some basic consultation for free. All our services are for free, by the way. Repat Armenian services are for free for anyone who applies to us. So basically that's it. So on a personal level, more than happy to work with you and your friends who consider moving to Armenia or being engaged with Armenia, and let's see what will happen on a macro level after the elections.
Thank you very much.
And just out of courtesy, let's not diverge more into politics and the elections in hand, and keep it purely related to the topic. I know it's a redundant disclaimer, but just wanted to put it out there because sometimes our Armenian rooms tend to diverge. And hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening, everybody. How are you all?
Doing perfectly fine.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. So I've really enjoyed the room. I've jumped into a lot of Armenian rooms. It's one of the most interesting conversations I've had. So I'm going to say a few things from the last half an hour because you've jumped around a bit, but I'll try and tie some ideas together. So I'm a British Armenian. I'm in London right now, just relaxing. We've actually got some summer weather for once, and I'm having a cigar outside. So listening to everything, there's about three things that struck me, and just in terms of encouragement, in terms of not being accepted as Armenian. I went to Armenia first time in '93, and it's happened a few times, but I keep trying to get involved with Armenia. So I run a management consulting firm. I do all sorts of things, helping businesses, solving problems. I spent 20 years in Los Angeles as well, so I saw the Armenian community there. I've tried along this career journey to help Armenia, and it hasn't been easy. So in '93 I went, and I'd met the old president. Some of you are too young to know, Petrosyan's brother. I met him in Venice at the Armenian monastery, and he said, if you come to Armenia, he was working in the industry. He's a minister of industry or something, and I worked for Rio Tinto, which was one of the largest mining companies at the time. So again, I went there. I said, listen, if I can do anything to help, I can connect you up. At that time, I was working in Paris, and I said I can. You had a lot of molybdenum and things, and again, they were busy with the earthquake. They said thanks. I spent 2 days at the ministry, but there was nothing I could do. You know, in the end, everyone just wants money, and I said we can connect people up. I can get people to come. When I was in LA, I joined. So I'm a chemical engineer in business background. So I talked to Armenian engineers, and I went to some meetings in Orange County. I said, hey, dentists fly out there for 2 weeks. I'm happy to go. I run a consulting firm. I'm paid a lot of money to just spend time with people. Let's do something. Let's lecture. Let's. And again, everyone's, we can do it with doctors and dentists, but we don't really need you. We just need money to build a road. So that's pretty much the conclusion. And then I've been back and forth to Armenia many times, and I think again, it's not easy, but I will never stop. I'm now part of the Armenian Angels. There's AICA, the Angels Investment Club of Armenia, and I've been to Armenia a few times in the last 3 years for those meetings, and I do virtual meetings, and so I'm very encouraged in terms of a lot of these things, and I came, there was the big IT thing, what was that called, October 9th, 2019. Again, I was encouraged because there was a lot of global networking with a lot of people that I met, diasporans who wanted to help, and some of it is happening. Like obviously, there's a lot of activity there, but the kind of the racism that you're not Armenian from here. The first time I went in '93, I experienced that because again, the reaction was, well, you're not from here, you have it easy. You live in Paris or you live in London, and that attitude obviously puts me off to wanting to help. But I've come over the years, I've come to agree with a lot of you. I think said it's not what the general population thinks, and in many years of consulting in different countries, there's a Lebanese. I wrote a podcast and I interviewed this Lebanese lady, not Armenian, but a Lebanese lady who's got a job in Dubai, and she worked in Crossrail in London, and she worked for Bechtel, 2 engineering degrees, and in Abu Dhabi she gets this. Even though she speaks Arabic, again she gets, she's a woman and in that company. But at the same time, I consult for an Emirati family who's got an oil and gas business, and they are the complete opposite. So they are progressive. Everybody there is treated like fantastically, and so on the racist front, I think we all have to fight through that. Even my mum, when she worked in London, they were racist. They were against, you're not English. She was a woman at that time. It was very hard for women to get high ranking jobs, even if they were good. So I think it's an evolution that we can't ignore. But my only point was we shouldn't be put off, because everywhere I've seen in every country, it's moving. And I think our job is to create enterprises or companies that welcome diasporans into Armenia. And I think one of the ways, so the next comment would be, is one of the ways potentially to, again, involve more diasporans with international companies and money to potentially do exchanges or fund somebody for a year to go work for a company, or start, like you say, start small, but potentially have satellite companies that can do things. And the third thing is, I think maybe one of the ways to break the ice, because you were saying just to get used to Armenia, would be, potentially satellite, centers, like one in London and one in Paris and one in, where potentially we have a line. And I'd be happy to give my time and help, where we have people in Armenia that we can trust that will help us prepare potentially a student here who's graduating, say with a master's or MBA, to maybe do some kind of course here with people coming in and going who've got experience of working in Armenia, and again, we can do that a bit more now virtually. So I think taking the fright away from having to make the move. So potentially we could have some more kind of satellite, kind of like they did with the army. They'd have recruitment center sort of thing, but not quite like that. But you know what I mean. And then the final thing that I heard some of you say was more about the vision, and the vision, I guess, is linked to government. Again, when I was there about a year ago, I went to a couple of the deans at the American University. People said, I work a lot in protein engineering and biotech, and you've got great programmers. And I said, listen, if the government could potentially have a vision, like you said, for 2020, 2030, to say we're going to be really good in these 7 areas and these hubs, then I could find people in that industry who would want to fund 10% of a lab or something in Armenia to do something that fits the Armenian footprint, in the sense that, again, you can't manufacture cars, you can't export easily, but you can do programming, and you could probably do some very high-end, high throughput experimentation and microbiology type of stuff, and we could potentially bring in some top people from China. So I think, again, if you were able to potentially set up some hubs that give us some focus, again, then we could recruit Armenians doing these degrees to go out there for 2 years and work with these companies. So anyway, it's just some ideas, but it's a fantastic room. So thanks for leading such a great conversation. Really enjoyed it.
I love how you tackled all those points in
Thank you.
session. It was amazing. Thank you, Haig.
Thank you.
one thing that he brought up actually hit me hard is I've moved around a few countries in my time, and the racism we as foreigners go through is evident, and trying to adapt to the situation and the culture and everything. Haig actually made me think about something I never thought about, and actually makes me a bit sad thinking about, is that at the end of the day, even though we are Armenian, now I might be approaching it in the wrong way. At the end of the day, even though we are Armenian, all of us, when we're moving back to our hiding, because those were always our lands, we're kind of foreign to those lands. We're our mindset, our being. So that kind of racism that Arlene uh, a few minutes back, I mean at this point 30 minutes back, said and pointed out, we are kind of different. We are foreign, and the racism we tend to come across, it would happen anywhere else in the world, and we just have to, I mean, agraninis kırzenk, and live through it and think about the long term and the next generation, because hopefully we'll have a bunch of children who are going to carry on the legacy. So I don't know, that one thing just popped in my head, and I hadn't thought about it, because I wouldn't. It's bitter to think about that. Even though it's your Heidenik and it's your home, technically, you're technically different. I don't know.
You know, Garo, actually, we are
Sorry,
not
guys.
you.
David, sorry. I'm just gonna kind of just sneak out. I want to say thank you to everybody. If there are questions that that you need to ask me, definitely you can contact me. But you have to forgive me. I'm just gonna kind of slowly leave and hope to be in touch with you all soon. Thanks again for this wonderful opportunity.
And thank you, Lara, for all your valuable input. It was very nice having you on here.
Yeah, Garo, actually, we are not used to. We are quite a close society in Armenia. We are not used to diversity, and many Armenians I noticed that are even proud that we are a mono-ethnic state, mono-ethnic society.